3 countries, 3 strangers who found me when I thought no one was watching. One of them stood outside my door. One of them was already inside my room before I knew he existed. And one of them followed me for 40 miles down a road with no other cars on it. These aren't urban legends. These are messages sent to me by real travelers. And by the end of this video, you'll understand why none of them will ever sleep in a ground floor room again. Stay to the end. The third story still doesn't have an explanation, and I want to hear what you think really happened. I was 26, traveling by myself for the first time, and I picked Siargao because every video I'd watched made it look like the safest, sleepiest island in the Philippines. Surfers, hammocks, nobody in a hurry. For the first 4 days, that's exactly what it was. I was staying at a small guest house just outside General Luna, the kind of place with maybe a dozen rooms built around a courtyard. No gate, no front desk after 9 p.m. It backed onto a rice field on one side and a dirt road on the other. Quiet. That was the whole appeal. On day 5, I rented a scooter to find a waterfall a local had recommended, about 40 minutes inland. I got there late afternoon, stayed longer than I meant to, and started heading back as the light was dropping fast, the way it does near the equator. Full daylight, then almost nothing, in under 20 minutes. About 10 minutes from the guest house, I clocked a motorbike behind me. Nothing unusual about that on a 1-lane road, except it stayed exactly 1 bike length back no matter what I did. I slowed to let it pass. It slowed too. I sped up. It matched me. I pulled into a sari store that was still open, bought a water I didn't need, and stood there for a solid 10 minutes watching the road. The bike was gone. I told myself I'd built a stranger commuting home into something sinister, and I finished the ride back without seeing him again. I didn't think about it again until the next afternoon, when I was eating lunch at an open-air cafe on the main strip. A man walked past, slow, scanning the tables. Not like he was looking for a seat, more like he was taking attendance. He didn't look at me directly, but he clocked me. I could feel it, the way you feel someone's eyes drag across you in a crowded room. He was wearing the same faded green jacket as the guy on the bike. I couldn't swear to the face. I could swear to the jacket. I told the cafe owner, mostly just to say it out loud to someone. She gave me the same look everyone gives you when you say something like that to a stranger. Polite, a little humoring, like I was a nervous foreigner overreacting to a hot day and too much sun. She said the island was small. Everyone crosses paths with everyone eventually. She wasn't wrong. That's what made it worse. That night I went to bed early, doors locked, and told myself the whole thing was over. At around 1 a.m. I woke up to a sound I couldn't immediately place. A soft, deliberate scrape, metal on metal, coming from the direction of my window. My room had a jalousie window, the kind with horizontal glass louvers you can crank open, and someone was very slowly trying to lift one of the slats out of its frame. I lay there frozen, listening to it happen, 1 careful inch at a time. I didn't have a phone signal strong enough to call anyone reliably, and the guest house had no night staff to call anyway, so I did the only thing I could think of. I grabbed the desk lamp, stood up, and slammed it hard against the wall next to the window, as loud as I could make it. The scraping stopped instantly. I heard fast footsteps moving away through the grass, then nothing. I didn't sleep again that night. At sunrise, the first thing I did was check the window latch. One of the 4 louver slats had been pulled almost fully out of its groove, angled just enough that a hand could have reached through and worked the inside lock if I hadn't woken up when I did. The guest house owner apologized, said this had genuinely never happened before, and moved me to a room on the 2nd floor for my remaining nights. No extra charge. I never saw the green jacket again. Not at the cafe, not at the ferry terminal, not on the boat out. I keep coming back to one detail. The cafe is a 15-minute walk from that guest house in a completely different direction from the waterfall road. There was no reason for those 2 men to be the same person, except that somehow whoever it was, they already knew exactly where I was sleeping before I ever told anyone the name of my guest house out loud. When I was 19, my university choir went on a 5-day trip to Prague. 20 of us, 2 chaperones, staying in a converted hostel near the old town that used to be a dormitory. Long hallways, shared bathrooms down the corridor, key cards that didn't always work on the first try. Our schedule was packed during the day. Rehearsals, a performance, guided tours. So by night 4, everyone was exhausted, and most of the group went to bed right after dinner. I wasn't tired. I'd made a friend earlier that week, a guy from a choir we'd performed with, and he invited a few of us out. Only one other person from my group wanted to come. We told no one, borrowed a spare key card from the front desk drawer instead of asking permission, and slipped out around 11 p.m. The night itself was fine, actually one of the best of the trip. We got food, wandered along the river, talked until nearly 3 a.m. The problem started on the walk back. My friend's directions were wrong, or the map on my dying phone was wrong, and we ended up circling the same 3 blocks in a part of town that had gone completely dark. Shutters down, no bars, no people, just narrow cobblestone streets that all looked identical. My phone died completely with 4% battery left, mid-map. We were properly lost at 3 a.m. in a foreign city with no way to call anyone. We ended up asking a night shift bakery worker unloading a delivery van for directions. He didn't speak much English, but understood enough to point us toward a landmark we recognized, and from there we found our way back on foot, soaked from a light rain that had started somewhere in the last hour. We got back into the hostel just before 4 a.m., careful not to wake anyone, and I climbed into my bunk still in my wet clothes because I was too tired to care. I woke up to a flashlight in my face. A man was crouched beside my bed, close enough that I could smell cigarettes on him. He wasn't in any uniform. When I flinched and made a sound, he immediately said, calm and quiet, that he was hostel staff, that a girl down the hall had lost her passport and he was checking rooms to see if it had ended up in the wrong bag. It was a strange enough story that half of me believed it purely because nobody makes up something that boring at 4 a.m. He moved to our shared closet and started going through it while I sat there, heart pounding, too disoriented to think clearly. My roommate stirred and asked what was happening. I repeated what he'd told me, and for a second we both just accepted it, the way you accept anything at that hour when your brain isn't working. He kept searching, bags, jacket pockets, the outside pouch of my backpack, which was sitting directly next to my head. It was the sound of him unzipping a second bag that finally cut through the fog. I sat up properly, turned on the light, and asked him directly which staff member he was because I hadn't recognized anyone from check-in. He didn't answer. He just stood up, said something about checking the next room, and walked out. I didn't fall back asleep. At 6 a.m., when the actual hostel staff started their shift, I went down and described him. Nobody matched the description. There was no missing passport, no girl down the hall. By breakfast, 3 separate rooms had reported the same thing. A man with a flashlight, a story about a lost item, and by the time each victim was distracted or half asleep enough, cash and 1 laptop gone. He'd worked his way down almost the entire floor before someone finally challenged him. The police came, took statements, and told us this wasn't the first report of someone impersonating staff at hostels in that district. He'd never been caught. What still gets me isn't the theft. It's that out of everyone on that floor, he came into my room first, at exactly 4 a.m., 10 minutes after 2, exhausted, soaking wet teenagers who'd been sneaking around the city all night, quietly let themselves back inside a building that was supposed to be locked. In the summer of 2022, 4 of us drove up into the Scottish Highlands for a long weekend, chasing empty roads and no phone signal, which honestly was the whole point. We flew into Inverness, rented a car, and pushed further north than we probably should have on the first night, aiming for a cottage near Applecross down single-track roads that wind along cliff edges with nothing but a low stone wall between you and a very long drop. By the time we hit the last stretch, it was almost midnight. The roads up there are single track with passing places cut into the verge every few hundred meters. You pull into one, let oncoming traffic through, then pull back out. We hadn't seen another car in almost 40 minutes. Then headlights appeared behind us. Fast. Whoever it was closed the distance in under a minute and sat right on our bumper, high beams on, blinding us through the mirrors. I pulled into the next passing place to let them by, the way you're supposed to. They pulled in right behind us instead, and stopped. We sat there for maybe 15 seconds, engine running, nobody getting out, nobody driving past. My friend Callum in the passenger seat said quietly, "Just go." So I pulled back onto the road. The headlights followed. For the next 20 minutes, they stayed exactly 1 car length back, no matter our speed, no matter the blind bends where any sane driver keeps distance out of pure self-preservation. Every time the road briefly widened, they'd surge up alongside us for a few seconds, not overtaking, just level with us, close enough that I could see it was a dark SUV with 2 shapes in the front seats, then drop back behind. We didn't have signal to call anyone. The nearest village with a police presence was the one we'd already passed. So instead of leading them straight to our cottage, which none of us wanted, especially with 2 girls in the group already close to panicking in the back seat, I turned off onto a smaller road at random, hoping they'd continue straight. They followed the turn. We ended up on a single-track loop that dead-ended at a locked gate to a farm. I had to do a 3-point turn on a road barely wider than the car to get back out, and for a moment we were facing them head-on, maybe 20 feet apart, headlights into headlights. I could just make out two figures in the front seats, completely still, neither one shielding their eyes from our lights the way you naturally would. They just watched. Then, without warning, they reversed back the way they'd come and disappeared. We didn't relax. We drove straight past our own turnoff for the cottage, added an extra 15 minutes doubling back roads we didn't need, and only pulled in once we were certain nothing was behind us. We locked every door and window of a cottage that, we then realized, had no working phone line and was a 40-minute drive from the nearest police station. In the morning, a farmer walking his dog past the cottage mentioned, completely unprompted, that we should keep our gate shut at night, that there'd been trouble on that stretch of road on and off for a couple of years, cars targeting tourists on the single tracks after dark, though nothing had ever been proven and no one had ever been caught. He said it the way you'd mention the weather, like it was just a known feature of the area you learned to live around. We left a day early. To this day, none of us know if it was kids messing with tourists, something worse, or just two locals who thought it was funny to terrify a car full of strangers on an empty road at midnight. What I do know is that the moment we turned back onto that dead-end road, they turned in after us without hesitating for even a second, like they already knew exactly where it led, and exactly what we'd have to do to get back out.